Do you ever feel like a short order cook of a superhero parent? Or are you tired of mealtime battles and guilt over not serving those perfect dinners? Well, get ready to transform your family's eating habits with some simple sanity saving strategies from a dietitian guest today who's been in your shoes. So stay tuned for this game changing episode in just a few moments. Hey parents, welcome to Fulfillment Therapy. Do you want to raise your kids better and have a stronger marriage? Are you up late at night researching marriage and parenting tools and self-care tips? Do you start each day hoping for deeper connections and less chaos, but it ends with family arguments and going 12 different directions again? My name's Kendra, wife, mom, therapist, and growth enthusiast. It wasn't until I discovered how to fulfill my unmet needs that I was finally able to show up as my best self as a spouse and parent. I realized that by meeting my needs, I could more fully meet the needs of my family with more energy and less resentment. In this podcast, I teach parents skills like boundary setting, prioritizing personal needs, communication, and claiming ownership. Just like my clients, you'll be shocked by the improvement in your marriage, parenting, and personal life when you focus on fulfilling your important unmet needs. Ready to prioritize yourself so you can quit mentally throat punching people? Then grab those earbuds and head outside, and let's walk and talk. Welcome back, my friends, to Fulfillment Therapy. Today we have a special guest, Jason Levee, a registered dietitian and dad of 3. He's the founder of Whole Family Life and is all about helping families tackle mealtime challenges like picky eating and meal planning, especially when life gets busy. So he really focuses on creating personalized, sustainable nutrition plans for for everyone in the family. And his goal is to make mealtimes less stressful and more enjoyable, which I know these are things that all of our listeners can relate to. I was actually just thinking about this before you came on, Jason, and I'm like, it would be really great to have him at our house. So excited to have you on the show.
I'm excited to be here. I don't think I'll be coming to your house, but that's okay. I can help you out virtually as much as I can.
So tell me a little bit about yourself before we jump into everything. Give us the little Reader's Digest.
Yeah. So like you said, I'm a registered dietitian, but I actually haven't always been a dietitian. When I started my career about 15 years ago, I actually worked in financial services for a while and never really loved it, but always kept coming back to this like burning passion that was within me that I didn't realize was so strong for nutrition. And I would talk about nutrition and health and all these different things at work all the time, but I never really saw that career path. And then I got married and my wife looked at me one day. She's like, you need to do something that's going to really make you happy. Like, what's that going to be? And this is before we have kids and anything like that, before my wife's even pregnant. And we talked a lot about things I really, really loved. And nutrition was kind of front of mind and it kept coming up. So I talked to a few other dietitians and realized that was the path I wanted to go down. So it's a long time ago now. So now it's probably like 7 or 8 years ago. I went back to school completely, like redid my bachelor's, redid everything and became a dietitian a few years ago. So it's the best. Like, I absolutely adore it. I didn't intend to actually work with families originally, but my oldest son was born while I was in the middle of my master's program. And I just had this realization of there's so much nutrition information out there and a lot of it's noise. And it's really hard if you don't have if you don't have the time to actually parse through it all to figure out what's really important and what's just kind of not. What's kind of pseudoscience or what are the things that aren't necessarily going to be effective. And so I realized, wow, there's such an opportunity to work with families to build in kids and build in families such a stronger foundation and a stronger relationship with food. And so that's what really inspired me to start Whole Family Health. It's, that's day in, day out. I get to work with families across the country on Zoom and just, meet with them and talk about food and, figure out what's going on in your situation right now and what can we do what's the next step that we can take and what's the step after that, put together that long-term plan that's made up of all of those little pieces. So everyone's situation is different. And That's what keeps it interesting for me. It's to, to work through the different situations, the specifics, the nuances, the allergies, or like the religious preferences, cultural preferences, whatever it is. Everyone's situation is different, and that's what makes it fun. That's what keeps me going. So yeah, I'm excited to talk a little bit more about stuff I do every day and talk with you today.
Oh, awesome. Well, thank you for that little summary. And I feel like I really want you to have a magic wand, like people wanted me to have as both a personal trainer and as a therapist, which I know that we can't do, but I want to be like, okay, Jason, just give me that magic wand that will actually, this is what I want. If you can show me how to do this, and I know you won't be able to, but maybe you'll surprise me. So we just got back from a resort that was wonderful. And I told my family, I was like, you know what? I feel like I hit my quota somewhere around probably like 30,000 meals because I have a 17-year-old and I have 4 children, often 5 with an exchange student that will live with us, depending on who's in the house. So that's a lot of meal to prepare over the years. And now we're getting to that part where they're in and out of the house a lot, like going from different activities or just not even like all that time you put in. They're not even all necessarily enjoying it together. And it just feels like a lot. And I don't want to do it anymore. Suddenly, I remember judging people that didn't want to. And suddenly I'm like, I just don't even care. Like, let's all make a sandwich and call it good. And what I'm wanting, the magic wand, what I'm wanting is coming back from this resort. I just want like a waiter to just hand me things and give me all the things that I don't want to put any effort. And Jason, I know you can't give me that, but I really want you to give me that. So what can I do to make it easier?
So short of hiring a personal chef, you can keep it simple, right? So simple, the simplest solution is usually the best solution. And there's this temptation to overcomplicate things, kind of start from scratch every single day. And that works for a couple weeks, maybe. In your situation, maybe it works for like a day or two. And then all of a sudden it's Wednesday and you're like, oh my God, like there's still 3 more days left in just the work week, let alone the weekend. Like, what are we going to do? Like, I'm all out of ideas. So burnout as a parent is real. Like, it is so real. No one has to talk about it, but it's real. And, cooking or meal prep or meal sourcing, however you want to do it, that plays a part. It can play a big part. It can play a little part. But, almost every parent I talk to is somewhere like on high end of the burnout meter. And it's a little bit scary, right? To kind of feel like you're in that position. The best thing to do is take a step back and, see what you can either delegate or offload. If your kids are older, get them involved. And if your kids are younger, get them involved. The younger kids start to assist with either meal prep or food shopping or menu planning. The better skills they're going to develop over time, the more bought in they're going to be, and the more willing they're going to be to try new foods. So this is kind of like an approach that can, you figure out where you are and you figure out what the next step is, but it helps to tackle a lot of different fronts all at once. So that's one step, right? Is to bring other people in, kind of take things off of your plate. Have a family meeting if that's something that your family does, or talk about it, as a family, like I'm really burnt out. Like this is a really busy week for me at work. This is a really busy season, whatever it is, just have that conversation, be open and be honest. But when it comes to keeping it simple, let's say you're the only one who can cook for whatever reason, and, it all falls back to you. Keep it simple. So break meals down into 3 components. Break it down into a protein, a starch, and a vegetable. That's it. Does not have to be like a gourmet meal. Most of our meals should just be functional. Every once in a while, if you want to like go all out and make something that is truly gonna like knock everybody's socks off, great, go for it. More power to you. I will tell you. So I have a 5-year-old, he's almost 6, and then I have twin 4-year-olds. The likelihood of me, and I'm usually the person who cooks in our family, the likelihood of me doing something like gourmet or like super intense in the kitchen right now is basically 1%. It might happen once a year. It probably happens less than that. And so meals are functional. And if you break it down into those 3 components, it's really, really easy to say, okay, like what's my protein? Cool. It's going to be chicken. It's going to be salmon. It's going to be tofu. It's going to be whatever, right? You pick something from protein. How are you going to prep it? Keep it simple. Roast it. Grill it I don't have a grill because I live in New York, but grill it if you have one. Cut it up and like saute it or whatever it is. Pick something that's easy that works for you that your family likes. Maybe try a different seasoning if you really want to branch out a little bit, but don't step so far into the unknown that all of a sudden you're introducing something completely different and you don't even know if it's going to work. And now you're stressed out because it didn't work, or, half your family didn't like it, or whatever it is. So take one little step at a time. Similarly for starches and for veggies, just pick one and just start with it and just make it. Maybe it's rice, maybe it's pasta, maybe it's sweet potatoes or white potatoes, whatever it is. Just make it and then make a vegetable. Steam it, roast it, buy frozen veggies. I buy frozen veggies every single week because they are the easiest shortcut to take, and they are just as, in some cases, more nutritious than fresh. And so, lean on the shortcuts that you can take that you can still feel really, really good about, and just keep it simple. And you can plan using this model, right? So you can look at the week ahead. Some people like to do it on Sundays. Some people like to do it on Wednesdays. You could do it today. Today's Monday. You could do it today if you want to. Plan the week out. Just days, protein, starch, vegetable. Lay it out. Write it down. That way you can figure out, okay, I have more time on Monday night to cook, so I'll make extra of everything. Then we're going to have pretty much the same thing on Tuesday. Or I will keep the seasoning really, really simple on it, and then I'll add this like sauce or condiment or whatever it is to completely change the flavor on Tuesday. And then Wednesday I can cook again. And then, you carry on that pattern throughout the rest of the week. And now all of a sudden, this mental burden of having to plan daily is gone. And you've done it, and it took, I can do it now in 5 minutes, right? But when I first started doing it, I would agonize over every decision. And it's like, well, if we have brown rice on Monday, like, are they going to want it again on Tuesday? Like, do I need to, how much variety do I really need? Does it need to be a different flavor, or a different grain, or a different this, or a different that? And now I look at it and I'm like, all right, like, what do I have in the pantry? Like, do I need to go to the store again? When is that happening? Or am I ordering groceries online? Like, all those other pieces. So instead, I just kind of try to keep my pantry stocked as best I can, and then, reach in there and see, okay, I have lentils, or I have rice, or I have whatever it is, and that's me, my starch on this day. And if I need to go to the store, when can that happen? Or can my wife go? Or can someone else go? Right? Like, how do we figure this out? And it's just that kind of that problem solving, and keeping it to small problems rather than letting them turn into bigger problems. It's a long answer, but kind of the gist of it is really keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate it. Just get out of your own way and break it down, and just put those pieces together.
Yeah, I like that. I feel like I have implemented some of these, so maybe you can give me like a further step. But honestly, I think most of the listeners are kind of where you're at, like that they have younger kids, that they're doing it often alone. There's total chaos, and I have that as well. But maybe it just started shifting. Like my youngest is 8 years old, and except for him, all of them, I implemented this during grad school. I think when I couldn't keep up anymore. Where now we all take a night and we cook. Besides, like I said, the 8-year-old, but he can still help. So I'm not making all the meals anymore, which is awesome. But it's still that struggle, even with my spouse, where they're like, I don't know what to make. And that's the worst part for me. I'm like, I don't have any more mental space for like figuring it out. Like, I'd want you to 100% take over, not for me to like walk you through it all, which is not totally fair for the younger kids. But do you have any tips on like how to, like, I love how you made it really simple with a protein, starch, and veggie. But like, do you have, I guess your kids are younger, so they're not really helping in this regard. But like, do you have a way to just like lay it all out where they can just look at something, or what do you do for like decision making for that stuff?
My kids actually aren't too young to help out. They have a lot of opinions, and they share them all the time, not just about food, but also very much about food. You can make a chart, and it doesn't matter how old your kids are. You can use pictures if you want. You can use words. You could, if your family is like a Google family and you want to use a Google spreadsheet, you can do whatever you want as a way to share a document. But you basically just lay it out. And if using your example, Kendra, of having a different family member cook each night, add a column that says like who's cooking, and it's this person on Monday, this person Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, so on and so forth. And then also build in time. Like if you know that you're going to order takeout on certain nights or order delivery on certain nights, just put it on the schedule. Like there's no shame in it. It's fine. It's totally, totally fine. Just plan for it. That way, that like, this week's going to be crazy, but I actually only need to figure out 4 nights of meals instead of 7, right? Because those other 2 or 3 nights or whatever it is, we're going to either go out or we're going to order in or whatever. But you can lay it out on a spreadsheet or on a table, or like if you have a whiteboard, or there's like smart boards that people have in their kitchens now. Whatever visual medium you want to use it, and have it on the fridge, and like have it centrally located where everyone can see it, and maybe set a deadline for, everyone to figure out what they're going to make, right? So maybe it's by Saturday afternoon, so you can grocery shop on Sunday, right? And you can kind of have that list come together. Maybe it's 24 hours in advance, whatever works for you, right? The answer that works for you is not necessarily going to be the answer that works for me. And that's fine because we don't need to use the exact same systems. But having it visually presented, it builds an accountability. It also makes everyone aware. And it lets you know, like, hey, here's what you have figured out, right? Like, here are the pieces that are missing. Here's something that, might pop up as, where I need to step in and kind of assist. And that's fine. Like, knowing those things in advance really helps. It prevents that last minute scramble. And instead you can plan for it. And, when you can plan or when you can take action earlier on, you can prevent things from going wrong. You can't prevent everything. You wish you could. That's the real magic one, is to make all the problems go away. Or I should say, make all the surprises go away. But, you do the best you can. And not everything's going to be a 10 out of 10. And part of it is just accepting that that's okay. Like, it does not everything needs to be perfect all the time.
So. Yeah. Letting go. That's a big theme that keeps coming up in like almost every episode. It is. And I love how you simplify it too in many ways, like not only with the 3 things, but like there's no shame in frozen vegetables, for example. Like I didn't know for the longest time that sometimes frozen vegetables are healthier than like produce that's been sitting out for like a long time when it comes to like peak, when they're picking it and freezing it. Anyway, yeah, like we put these huge expectations on ourselves all the time, especially as parents, right? When it's not really necessary. So I think that's beautiful. My son actually just said last night, he's about to turn 14 tomorrow. And he's like, I feel like I really want to step up my game when it comes to making meals. Because my older daughter teases him. He's like, you just always make mac and cheese. Like, we don't want mac and cheese. So he's like, no, I'm determined. But that does require me as a parent, like it feels so big in my mind of like mapping all that out, like putting a chart. But really, if I were to do all of that and like something that I could put on the fridge for like ideas, like you said, for proteins, for starches, for veggies, and then they could just look at it and like circle their one. Like it doesn't really have to take that much time, right?
It's literally a blank sheet of paper. You just draw a table on it. It does not have to be fancy. Like you don't have to like go on Pinterest and like find some like template or anything like that. I can't tell you how many times I've done it like on the back of a napkin, like literally on the back of a napkin, and just like taped it to the fridge. For whatever reason, fridges aren't magnetic anymore. I guess stainless steel. But it's like taped it to the fridge and it's just like up there. And, that's what I work off of for the week or for the day or whatever it is. Sometimes it's a note on your phone, whatever it is. It doesn't need to be complicated. Also, 2 things. Happy early birthday to your son. And second of all, mac and cheese is great. Like you can make mac and cheese as like a component of a meal instead of having it be like the only thing, right? That can be, I guess that can kind of be your starch. Or if you add proteins to it and add veggies to it, it can be a whole meal. You can go any number of ways without leaving the kingdom of mac and cheese. So there's lots and lots of directions to go with it. And, that's fine. I mean, I give him credit for making mac and cheese at 14. That's great.
I like how you celebrate the wins before all like, again. But you're right. Like the fact that my kids are doing this they're gonna be so much more prepared, like come time for them to leave home, when so many people are like, I've never even gone in the kitchen to like attempt to do that because my parents just do it for me. Sound great. Yeah. So what other tips do you have for us as busy parents to make it more, well, actually, this is another one that I hear a lot. Sometimes we have really picky eaters. For example, my youngest son, my 8-year-old, he was the best eater I ever had. Like he would always be there with me for meal prep before he started school, before 5. And he would be like eating all the things. I'm talking like jackfruit, jicama, like all these things kids wouldn't even touch. He was like in it. But then he started eating school lunches and this terrible stuff that I don't love. And now he's like way more picky and like, I don't want to eat that. So what can we do with kids like that are just suddenly more picky and contrary to help meal times go smoother?
There's a lot. It depends on so many factors, but broadly speaking, stick with it. So it takes a really, really long time for kids to form opinions of foods. So it takes somewhere between like 17 and 21 exposures to a food to form like a full-fledged opinion of it. And then it's still going to change over time. Perfect example. I hated mushrooms when I was a kid. Love them now. Right. And that transition happens sometime around, I don't know, I was probably in my early 20s when it happened. I think I made up in my head that I was allergic to them and just like would stay away from them, and then found out that I was eating them like cooked all along. My mom was just kind of hiding them. Different story altogether. But your tastes change over time, and that's likely to happen. The hard part with school lunches and with kids now, or more so even than when we were growing up, is the exposure to packaged foods and the consistent flavor, like it's exactly the same every single time. You open up a thing of Pringles, for example, and they're all exactly the same shape, exactly the same texture, exactly the same flavor. If you peel an orange, two segments might taste different from each other. That unpredictability creates like kind of like a subconscious anxiety for our kids sometimes if they're kind of rigid about their way that they're thinking about food. There's a lot of comfort in those packaged foods because you know exactly what you're getting. But you don't know what you're getting when it comes to like our fruits and our vegetables, like blueberries. Some of them are going to be really tart. Some of them are going to be really sweet. You don't know until you bite into it. That can cause anxiety sometimes. It may be like a low level of anxiety, but it's still anxiety. And so kids will opt for comfort sometimes, and comfort can come from those packaged foods that have that really, really predictable, hyper palatable flavor. I could do a very long talk about the state of food in our country, and I'm going to spare your listeners that talk for now. But a lot of the foods that are offered are, flavored beyond anything that would naturally occur. And so it overwhelms your taste buds and it tastes unlike anything else. And so it's really, really hard for, like, our brains are kind of hardwired to want those things. And the food companies know this. And so they play on that a little bit. So it makes it really, really difficult for parents at home to be like, well, no, we're not just having like Pringles and Gushers and fruit by the foot or whatever all day long. We're going to have like, this like chicken and broccoli and rice type of meal or whatever it is. And kids can really dig their heels in. And you never want to send your kids to bed hungry or anything like that. You don't feel good doing that. It's hard. You stick with it, right? And, you take the pressure off. Take the pressure off. Oftentimes kids get really, really picky and parents like lean into it. They dig their heels in and it creates this power struggle. And your kid's going to win that every single time because you're not going to feel good if you force them to eat something. You're not going to feel good if you push upon them like your way of doing things. You just got to take the pressure off. Got to take the pressure off. So they don't want to eat it. That's fine. That's fine. This is what's for dinner, right? Like there's no other option. A little bit harder with older kids because they're much more self-sufficient, but you can control what's in your house, right? You can say, okay, like this is what's for dinner. Like if you aren't going to eat it, that's fine. That's your choice, but this is what's for dinner and there's not going to be anything else later. And look, if your kid misses one meal, if you're not food insecure, if your kid misses one meal, they're going to be fine. They're going to be totally fine. And they learn pretty quickly. This works really well with little kids. Turns out parents of little kids are the least willing to do this. But I will tell you from personal experience, like one of my kids will occasionally just throw a complete fit at the dinner table and will like ask for a million different things. And part of it's you got to stay calm. You got to keep really, really calm and not escalate the situation and just say, look, like, this is what's for dinner. If you don't want to eat it, you don't have to. But this is what's available. And, here's the rest of our routine before we go to bed. Granted, my kids are little, so they're not like staying up late after dinner. Usually, sometimes they do, but yeah, and then usually right around the time they're going to bed, they're like, I'm hungry, and I'm like, well, this is now our conversation we're gonna have, and we talk about it. We're like, look, like you made a choice at dinner time. You didn't want to eat what was there, and like I'm making sure I include foods that I know that they like safe foods for them, and still they'll push back and they'll say like, I'm hungry, I'm hungry, I'm hungry. I didn't eat dinner, and you feel like a terrible parent, and it's awful. But then the next day, you know what happens? First one to the table for dinner. And so, we're on like in every 6 months it happens with one of my kids. And it's fine. It happens once and it doesn't happen again for a long time. And it's usually the same child in my case. So yeah. But you can do things like that to kind of hold the line. You can bring your kids into more of the prep and more of the planning and just get them even more involved as much as they're willing to do and as much as they're able to do. Kids as young as like 3 years old can use kid-safe knives if you supervise them and teach them. And then all of a sudden, you'll have a 5-year-old who uses a knife independently. And that's really cool. And so you can do things like that to teach skills that they can use in the kitchen. And then they'll take pride in things that they make. It's a little bit harder as you get into the teenage years sometimes, but if you instill those values in your kids early on, they're going to want to be involved until they don't. But they'll, for the most part, want to be involved. And then you got to keep a sense of humor about it. Just recognize that not every day is going to be perfect, and it's okay. Like you got to worry about the next day. You can't really worry about what's already happened. You can think about it. It's like a rocking chair though. It's not really going to get you anywhere. So you just kind of move forward to the next day and say, okay, like what's like the little thing that we can do a little bit differently today or tomorrow? What can we change? What's that small change that we can make? And then did it work? Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. If it didn't, okay, why didn't it work? Let's do like that postmortem on it. And if it did, say, great. Can we keep, pushing the envelope a little bit further forward? You keep moving forward a little bit. And it's that incrementalism that all of a sudden you look back after 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever it is, and you say, oh my goodness, I started out here. I had no idea what was going on. Now I'm all the way over here and I'm in a completely different place. And that goes for pretty much anything. But when it comes to food, it can look like my kid's only eating like 6 or 7 foods. It's probably more than that, but I hear that a lot. And, they're all the exact same color. They're all beige foods. Like, how do I get them to branch out and get away from just straight up chicken nuggets and like basically goldfish, things like that? And so we take one step at a time. Okay, your kid really likes chicken nuggets. Let's try a different brand. Sometimes that's too much of a step, right? Or maybe sometimes that's the right step. Sometimes it's a different shape of chicken nugget. Sometimes it's fish sticks instead. Sometimes it's chicken in a different format, right? Like it just depends on the kid. And we just play around with those different food adjacencies and slowly branch out. Sometimes kids are really into a color, right? So maybe they're really into red and they'll only eat things that are red. That's fine. I would love for a kid to eat red apples, red peppers, tomatoes, all these different things. They're all red, and you can lean into that. So you can go lots and lots of different directions with it in order to help kids to kind of expand their palate a little bit.
That's really helpful. I actually hadn't thought about the adjacent food before. And even you just talking about really boundaries, like don't be a pushover, but like don't engage in that power struggle. Just like this is like our limit. This is our boundary, our expectation for our family. You don't have to like make it this big battle. It could just be like, yeah. And they're going to push back. They're kids. Like we even push back as adults, right? Sometimes, and we all need boundaries. Like that's so healthy for families. So I love the simple different tips that you give for improving meal times and also like improving wellness, like introducing other things, recognizing those stages of development are normal and it's okay. And it doesn't have to be this big, terrible thing. Just like take it as it comes. So wonderful advice for those of us that are, which are all of us, right? Parents trying to improve meal times and simplify our life. Do you have any final thoughts for us today on how we can just make this easier, simpler, and find more joy when it comes to feeding our families or improving our health when it comes to food?
Yeah, the simplest things are, like I said before, are usually the best. But the best thing is sit down with your family for meals. Yeah, there's some research that says if you can hit 7 meals a week, you're in a good spot. It does not always have to be dinner. It could be breakfast. It could be multiple meals in the same day. But sit down as a family and eat together. It's not just about the food. It's about the conversation. It's about the connection. It's about spending time together, devices away, no phones, no tablets, no laptops, no TV, nothing like that, right? Put it all away and just talk to each other. Actually hear how their day was. Actually hear about what's going on at school, what's going on with soccer, what's going on with whatever activities your kids are doing. Tell them about something interesting that happened in your workday, even if it's not really that interesting. They might think it is, right? And that's how you learn about each other. That's how you share. That's how you model for your kids how to act at a table, right? One of the ways our kids learn how to use utensils is not just by picking them up, but also seeing how other people do it. And that works at every age. It's just that opportunity to connect. And it might feel like if it's not something your family's doing, it might feel awkward at first to not have everybody have a phone in their hand or anything like that. But it's a chance to really connect. And you can do that at home. You can do that at a restaurant. You can do it anywhere. That time that you spend together, like you don't get that back. So you may as well actually engage with each other and really enjoy it. So beyond that, then you can start to get into the different foods and things like that. But I really think it comes back to sit down together and enjoy a meal together. For the most part, I don't really care what it is. I just care that you guys are getting together and actually enjoying a meal together. That's super, super important. So that's where I like to start. Yeah.
I love that. And I hadn't even thought about, like, I take it for granted because that's something that we've really valued for a long time and know how that connects. So that is definitely my non-negotiable in our house. It's definitely harder with teenagers coming and going, but it's this thing that we aim for every night, at least one meal a day. But yeah, that's beautiful. Parting advice. So thank you for that and for coming on the show. Also, Jason, where can we find you if we want to reach out or hear more about you or what you have to offer? Where do we seek you out?
Absolutely. So I'm on Instagram at wholefamilyhealth.co. And my website's also wholefamilyhealth.co, not .com, it's .co. And on there you can find ways to contact me. I'm in the process of updating my website right now, so it might not work fully, but I recently came in network with insurance, which is exciting. So I'm able to work in network and allow someone other than you to actually pay for your nutrition counseling, which is great. So just reach out, and I'm happy to help however I can.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. And we'll put that in the show notes so they can find you as well. So thank you again for coming on. We loved having you.
Thank you.
Hey friends, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, chances are someone else would too. Would you take 30 seconds to share this with a friend who's looking for greater family fulfillment? And while you're sharing, tell me what you think about the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. It refuels me when I hear this podcast is helping you. No matter what your house or your hair looks like, I'll meet you back here every Monday and Thursday morning for more episodes. Until then.